The boy stood silently on the massive stage, his tiny hands trembling as he gripped the microphone, and before anyone could even guess what was about to happen, a single tear rolled down his cheek. The entire auditorium fell into a deep, uneasy silence. Even the judges leaned forward. Something about this moment felt different, like history was about to be written. If you've ever lost someone you loved, if you've ever felt pain that words couldn't describe, then stay with me till the end of this story. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this don't just entertain, they stay with you forever. The boy's name was Ethan. He was just 11 years old, small for his age, with soft brown hair and eyes that carried more weight than most adults could handle. Standing in front of thousands, under bright lights, with cameras capturing every movement, he looked fragile. But there was something unbreakable hidden inside him. Simon leaned forward, his usual confident posture slightly softened. "What's your name, young man?" he asked gently. "Ethan," the boy replied, his voice shaking. "And what are you going to sing for us today?" Simon asked. Ethan paused. The silence stretched. You could hear someone cough in the audience. Then he whispered, "A song, for my dad." Something shifted instantly. Simon's expression changed. The room grew heavier. "Is your dad here today?" he asked carefully. Ethan shook his head. His lips quivered. "No, he passed away last year." The audience gasped softly. A few people covered their mouths. One of the judges looked down, already emotional. Simon nodded slowly, his voice quieter now. "I'm so sorry. Take your time." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, gripping the microphone tighter. You could see his chest rising and falling rapidly, like he was fighting a storm inside himself. Then the music began, soft piano notes, slow and haunting. And then he sang. The first note was barely above a whisper, but it carried something raw, something real. His voice wasn't just sound, it was pain, love, memories, and longing all wrapped into one. The audience froze. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. As he continued, his voice grew stronger, but the emotion never faded. Every lyric felt like a message sent to someone who could no longer hear it. He sang about holding hands, about bedtime stories, about promises that would never be fulfilled. Halfway through the performance, Ethan's voice cracked. He stopped. For a second, it felt like everything might fall apart. Tears streamed down his face. The music continued, but he couldn't sing. The entire room held its breath. And then something incredible happened. The audience started clapping softly, not loudly, not to interrupt, but to support him. A gentle wave of encouragement spread across the room. Ethan wiped his tears, took a deep breath, and continued. This time, his voice was different. It wasn't just sad anymore, it was powerful. It was brave. It was healing. Each note hit deeper than the last. People in the audience were crying openly now. One of the judges had tears rolling down her cheeks. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, caught in the moment. Simon sat there, completely still. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't analyzing, judging, or thinking about the competition. He was feeling. And when Ethan reached the final chorus, everything changed. His voice soared, not perfect, not polished, but real in a way that perfection could never match. It filled every corner of the room, every heart, every hidden pain people carried with them. The last note hung in the air. And then silence. No one moved. No one spoke. And then suddenly, the entire audience stood up. A thunderous standing ovation erupted, louder than anything that had happened that season. People were clapping, crying, cheering, completely overwhelmed. Ethan stood there, breathing heavily, tears still falling, looking small but somehow larger than life. Simon didn't clap immediately. He just sat there, staring at Ethan. His eyes were filled with tears. Real tears. He slowly stood up, his hands trembling slightly, and joined the applause. When the noise finally settled, Simon walked up onto the stage, something he almost never did. Ethan looked confused, wiping his face. Simon stopped in front of him, took a deep breath, and then, he did something no one expected. He hugged him. The audience erupted again. Simon pulled back, his voice breaking. "I've been doing this for a long time," he said. "And I've seen thousands of performances, but I've never felt something like that." He paused, trying to hold himself together. That wasn't just singing. That was love. That was pain. That was everything. Ethan looked up at him, eyes still wet. "I just wanted my dad to hear me," he whispered. Simon's face completely broke. "I think he did," Simon replied softly. The entire room fell silent again. That moment wasn't about winning a competition anymore. It wasn't about fame or success. It was about connection. About loss. About turning pain into something beautiful. Ethan went on to win the Golden Buzzer that day, but honestly, he had already won something much bigger. He reminded everyone watching, whether in that room or across the world, that even in our darkest moments, we can find a way to express what we feel, to honor those we've lost, and to keep their memory alive. Because love doesn't disappear. It changes form. And sometimes, it becomes a song. So if this story touched your heart even a little, take a second right now, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Because you never know, one story, one voice, one moment, can change everything. The stage lights dimmed slightly, and a soft spotlight fell on the small figure standing alone in the center. The crowd, moments ago buzzing with excitement, suddenly grew quiet, almost as if everyone could sense that something unforgettable was about to unfold. Before we go any further, if you believe that stories can heal hearts, if you've ever missed someone so much it hurt, then stay till the end. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because what you're about to hear isn't just a performance, it's a moment that will stay with you forever. The boy's name was Daniel. Just 10 years old. Dressed in a simple white shirt and black pants, he looked more like he was heading to a school event than one of the biggest stages in the world. But his eyes told a different story. They were filled with something deep, something heavy. Simon leaned forward, studying him carefully. "Hello, young man. What's your name?" "Daniel," he replied, barely audible. "And why did you come here today, Daniel?" Daniel hesitated. He looked down at the floor, his fingers nervously gripping the microphone. For a moment, it seemed like he might not answer at all. Then he whispered, "I came to sing, for my dad." The air in the room shifted instantly. Simon's tone softened. "Is your dad here with you today?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, he passed away 2 years ago." A wave of emotion rippled through the audience. Some people looked at each other, already holding back tears. One of the judges pressed her lips together, trying to stay composed. Simon nodded gently. "I'm really sorry to hear that, Daniel. Take your time, okay?" Daniel took a deep breath. You could see his chest rise, then fall. He closed his eyes for just a second, as if gathering strength from somewhere deep inside. The music began. Soft piano keys echoed across the hall, slow, delicate, almost like a heartbeat. Daniel opened his eyes and started to sing. His voice was quiet at first, almost fragile, but every word carried emotion so raw, so honest, that it immediately pulled everyone in. It wasn't just a song, it felt like a conversation between a son and a father who was no longer there. He sang about memories, about laughter, about promises made and dreams shared. He sang about the last time he saw his dad, and the things he never got to say. And with every line, the audience felt it. Midway through the song, Daniel's voice trembled. His eyes filled with tears. He tried to keep going, but the emotions were too strong. He stopped. The music continued, but Daniel stood there frozen, tears streaming down his face. The silence in the room was deafening. Then, softly, someone in the audience whispered, "You can do it." Another voice followed. Then another. Soon, the entire audience began clapping gently, offering support, not pressure, not expectation, just love. Daniel wiped his tears, nodded slightly, and took a shaky breath. And then he started again. This time, something had changed. His voice wasn't just soft anymore, it was filled with strength. It carried the pain, yes, but also courage. It was as if he had found a new reason to keep going, not just for himself, but for his dad. Every note hit deeper. Every word felt heavier. People in the audience were openly crying now. Even the judges couldn't hold back their emotions. One covered her face, overwhelmed. Simon sat still, his eyes locked on Daniel. His usual composure was gone. This wasn't about judging anymore. This was something else. When Daniel reached the final part of the song, his voice rose, not perfectly, not technically flawless, but beautifully real. The kind of real that touches souls. The final note lingered in the air. And then everything went silent. For a brief moment, it felt like time had stopped. And then, the entire room exploded into applause. A standing ovation. Loud. Emotional. Uncontrollable. Daniel stood there, breathing heavily, tears still on his cheeks, looking both relieved and overwhelmed. Simon didn't clap immediately. He just stared. Then slowly, he stood up. His eyes were filled with tears. Real tears. He walked onto the stage, something he rarely ever did. Daniel looked confused, unsure of what was happening. Simon approached.